Joining me in studio is Joshua Collins. He is running for Congress in Washington's 10th district, and he has a fascinating story. Joshua, welcome to the program. How you doing, brother?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
All right, let's put this working, boys. Woo! America, baby, let's go. This ought to do the trick.
Joining us once again, congressional candidate for Washington's 10th district, Joshua Collins. Welcome back to the Damage Report.
Yeah, thanks for having me again, John.
Glad to have you here. Excited to learn, what's been going on in the race. I know that there's been some development in the field, so catch us up a little bit. It's been a while since we last spoke. How is the race going?
I've had issues with them just flat out lying about me. Not that they're criticizing me, I can take criticism, but they're flat out just making stuff up.
That you're the Zodiac killer? That's a common one I know in the political arena.
So social media isn't real life is a popular saying. You normally apply it to people advertising their lives on things like Instagram, advertising their bodies, where a lot of the time they either use really good lighting or Photoshop to make themselves look better. But in the case of Joshua for Congress, this also applies to political campaigning. Now, a lot of you guys will be aware of Joshua. He has gone viral a lot on various social media platforms, but eventually this support online translated to less than 1% of the vote in his congressional district. So I guess in this video what we're going to do is dissect Joshua for Congress's campaign. We're going to talk about the early days where he went viral, got a lot of glowing coverage on progressive media and some mainstream media as well, but then we're also going to talk about his downfall. We're going to talk about how he imploded when met with some pressure when he was on a show with Destiny. We're also going to talk about how he ran as a Democrat initially, then suspended his social medias, ghosted essentially everyone, and then came back as part of a new party. We're also going to talk about how he was the candidate with the 4th highest amount of money in the race. It hasn't probably disclosed where this money went, indicating it might have been used just to pay his staffers, and most of these people were his friends. Honestly, the whole thing seems really shady and it's not a good look. Whether Joshua was some sort of insidious mastermind who thought he could make a grift out of this, whether he was exploited by his friends, I guess we won't know until some further clarification is made. But before we get started into everything, I want to give the reaction on election night. So obviously, like I said, Joshua for Congress got 0.9% of the vote. So Big Baby Whaling's tweets, Joshua for Congress got less votes than a candidate who literally died in April. So this guy called Richard Boyce, and then he has a page that says he died in 2020, survived by multiple members of his family. Just to sum up what a disaster this campaign was, and then some people reacting to his loss on the night who lived in his district said things like this. So Lightbulb with a slight yellowish tint tweeted, I live in his district, never saw a mailer, a sign, a commercial or any other type of campaign advertising. Where did the $240,000 he spent go? Someone else says, I also live in his district and I freaking met the guy in December and there was basically no campaigning so far as I could tell. It was all TikTok memes and posting on Twitter about a rent strike, not even any signage. Meanwhile, Mary Ellen Biggerstaff at least has signage. So Mohammed tweets, I don't think there's a point in making fun of Joshua for Congress for losing his race, but I'm genuinely perplexed how he's in 16th place. Did they not campaign at all? And then one of the Krasenstein brothers says, Joshua for Congress getting a Jeb Bush ratio of campaign spending to votes. So we will talk about the campaign spending and we'll break it down a fair bit, but let's start with the origins of Joshua for Congress. So I talked about the somewhat glowing media coverage, and for those of you who haven't heard of this guy, because he is largely a social media phenomenon, let's read a little article from Insider in about January time. So this 26-year-old truck driver could become the youngest member of Congress, and he's using viral TikToks to spread his message. Joshua Collins, a 26-year-old Democratic Socialist, is running for Congress to replace retiring Democratic Rep Danny Heck in Washington State's 10th District. Collins was inspired to run by Senator Bernie Sanders. He has grown considerably on social media, which has served as a cornerstone of his campaign. So The Verge ran another article on him. So meet the 26-year-old socialist trucker running for Congress on TikTok with Yeet the Rich right underneath it. And this kind of goes into the problems of how much delusion I think he had on how much his TikTok and social media fame would really translate into actual votes and to actual support for him. So Collins has one crucial advantage over his competitors. He's kind of famous online. Before he formally launched his campaign last spring, Collins had around 40,000 followers on Instagram. His Twitter following was much smaller, but after a few well-timed retweets from Ocasio-Cortez, thousands of people started flocking to his account. Last October, he joined TikTok and launched his official campaign account, Joshua4Congress. So as his TikTok following grew, Collins began urging followers to support him more by directly joining his Discord, a messaging app similar to Slack. Discord has become Collins' main hub for his volunteers, allowing him to coordinate campaign drives with almost no overhead costs. This is quite funny considering he spent nearly $250,000. So around 1,300 people have joined the server, often to share memes, news, election polls, and conduct opposition research. Volunteers across the country are able to phone and text bank and make social media posts to support his campaign by signing up for his Discord. The Discord membership is only a fraction of his TikTok following, but potentially far more powerful. Collins calls the Discord server a campaign office, but online, and a remote organising space for volunteers to talk shop and inspire other young members of the resurgent left to run for political office themselves. Our Discord has literally doubled in size since I started using it, and my timely TikTok video about my incumbent opponent dropping out was part of a massive 2-day fundraising haul, Collins told The Verge. If it isn't translating for other people, they probably aren't using it right. And that's quite funny because even though it did translate to donations, with lots of people who had a lot of goodwill to give him money, it didn't translate to actual support because, again, he primarily campaigned online, and like I said at the start of the video, online isn't always real life. So then you have other articles, so GQ, can a socialist truck driver become the youngest member of Congress? And Joshua also got interviewed by Cenk on TYT, he was on the Damage Report, he also went on Vaush or Vosh or Wowshi, or whatever his name is, but basically had a lot of support on progressive media. So Joshua clearly appealed to the online left, raised a lot of money, again, like I said earlier, the fourth most in the entire race, but again, how did that translate to only 0.9% of the vote? So you saw those tweets, you said people who even met him didn't see any mailers, flyers, didn't meet him again on the campaign trail, he didn't knock on people's doors, it seems. It seems the whole campaign was one giant joke. Now, you see with people like Cenk Uygur, who also ran for Congress, Cenk is way more famous online. Cenk is also a good debater. Cenk is also a good organizer. Cenk also got out and campaigned. He did a traditional campaign, but of course, things like name recognition really held him back because the other Democrat running was more popular and more famous in the region. But if you like Cenk or don't like him, you know that that money was going directly on his campaign because he had a campaign staff, he had a campaign HQ, he had people working for him and getting out there and encouraging people to vote. And if you've seen that picture, hopefully I can find it, of AOC's shoes that she used to campaign, she literally destroyed them because she was out walking around all the time asking people to come out and vote for her, because that's how you get people to vote. And let me say, as another part of this phenomenon, in terms of the 2019 election in the UK, Jeremy Corbyn's social media is so much more popular than Boris Johnson, and he was so much more popular than basically any other politician. It did not translate to him winning the election because, again, you can have all this online support from the international left, especially in terms of younger people. But again, younger people don't traditionally vote as much as older people who might not even be online in any capacity. So all the money he raised was clearly not used properly in the campaign. So what was it used for? Now, I'm not getting up the official data for this exact graph, but I am going to go to another one which shows a pretty similar thing. So here it is, it's all broken down, nice little pie graph. So his comms director was paid $44,000. Ray, an out-of-state friend, was paid $37,000. Alonzo, who they think was an intern, was paid $18,000. His wife was paid $10,000, and you see the other people making up the rest, and $50,000 on all non-salary campaign expenditures. And the summary is, Joshua Collins has given 60% of all donations to 4 people: his wife, an out-of-state friend, 1 staffer and 1 intern. That's $110,000 of leftist grassroots donations spent on 4 people, for a campaign with no local endorsements. And as you saw from the tweets, and obviously from the amount of votes he got, it was not spent on actual campaigning. So let's go to the proper filing. So someone called Learn Your ACABs tweeted, the process data from the FEC only accounts for 146,000 in spending out of 238,000 in disbursements. So it's not the full picture, but most of it looks to have gone onto paid campaign staff. So here it is breaking it down again. You can see Daniel Scholl taking a lot of that money. Obviously you have office expenses. So look, you have things like lifts, you have things like car rentals, things like gasoline. Again, it's all filed properly, but what exactly were these people paid for? So Daniel Scholl, I'm guessing, was paid the 17 grand because of his expertise as a campaign director. Of course, everyone understands when you donate a certain amount to a candidate, you are paying for their staff. But how does this guy get paid so much when he oversaw such a colossal failure where Joshua Collins lost to another candidate who had passed away, despite spending the fourth most amount of money on the race? I'm just leaving the breakdown there, but you can see, so Violet Ray, $25,000, Alonzo Pierce, $13,000, his wife, $10,000. Like Joshua said, the money started rolling in properly about January time. So, you know, what the hell do they spend all this money on? You can see the costs here, and you can see here in the filings, based on the campaign expenses, yeah, fair enough, a lot of these, but these only amount to the hundreds individually and then it goes up, but it's nothing compared to, I guess, the salary you were paying these people. So it seems like Joshua either oversaw a campaign where he just gave a ton of money to his friends, or his friends manipulated him in that maybe they convinced him they were doing a good job, they were hiring volunteers, they were getting people out to spread his message, and maybe, you know, I'll give him the benefit of doubt, he could have been manipulated, and this guy, Daniel, or any of these other people could have been lying to him. But then we get to him disappearing off social media. So one day people woke up and all of Joshua's social medias were suspended, deleted. Did anyone know what happened? Had he purposely taken them down? So, you know, someone on his campaign staff who came out and tweeted this thread. So, good morning, everyone. I was waiting for Joshua4Congress to wake up because I wanted to give him a chance to speak for himself. But clearly everyone's got some pretty wild ideas about what's happening, so I'm going to dispel the rumours for all of you in the following thread. Joshua has done this before. The non-stop Twitter, instant notifications and DMs with interview requests make it nearly impossible for him to unplug and sleep. With the added stress of surviving and campaigning during a global pandemic, that influx of messages has gone way up. While we raise additional money to offset the cost of getting on the ballot, we can easily and comfortably pay the filing fee and will be on the ballot for the US Congress in WA10 this year. You can't just take campaign contributions and run away. There was no problem that led to this aside from Joshua's trouble getting sufficient rest to work. While social media is a massive part of our campaign, it seems like the only part of your campaign, he's also had to perform well in interviews, which he didn't really, panels, voter contact and political organisations. This means getting sleep. While I understand panicking, he's been gone for like 4 hours and I've seen a bunch of prominent folks on the left gleefully smashing their cancel buttons. You all can reach out, we can get requests as quickly as possible. I hope you all have a lovely day. You'll see Josh soon. Now the message there is totally fine. I think everyone will understand the burnout of general modern life and how stressful running a campaign would be, and a normal person who's trustworthy with a good campaign team who hopefully would have access to his social media accounts because they'd be running them as well, would say Josh is stepping away for the day, he's very stressed, he needs to get his sleep, or maybe he's stepping away for 3 days, maybe even 5 days, and he'll be back stronger than ever. As of now, the campaign team are going to run his social media account, stay tuned, or something like that. Most people would understand, especially the types of people who would be giving this guy money. Him just abruptly just doing that really doesn't fill anyone with confidence and makes it seem even more shady. And he has talked about having autism before and he has said it makes things worse, so it's totally understandable. But if you're running for office, this sort of stuff is totally unacceptable, and in my mind makes you unfit for office because you can't deal with the stresses of running this campaign in a sufficient way. Like I said, I'm sure a lot of people would be way more understanding if you put a message out there just saying I'm having a little break, gonna have a little break from social media. The campaign team will run things for a couple days. Not perfect, but it's better than just disappearing and disabling all your social media accounts. Oh yeah, did I forget to mention, when he came out of his social media hibernation, he was no longer running as a Democrat. He was running as part of the Essential Workers Party. Of course, no one has heard of that. No name recognition, so you're not even gonna get a little boost from being recognized as a Democrat. And of course, a total miscalculation. And you know, a lot of people have the right to feel scammed because you feel Joshua is running as a Democrat, as Bernie Sanders does when he ran for president twice, despite sitting in the Senate as an independent, because he recognizes the only chance of him getting elected is running as one of the mainstream parties, as Joshua should have done as well. So again, exacerbating what a disaster his whole campaign was. Now, it's pretty clear at this point that Joshua for Congress isn't cut out to be a politician. What made it even worse was his appearance on a Destiny live stream where he totally tanked. Basically, Josh went on and he got grilled by Destiny and his pals, and it was extremely awkward to watch. Josh is constantly rocking back and forth on his chair. These guys don't show much mercy, but it's hardly the worst thing he'd ever face in life, because if he went to Congress, he would be debating complete psychos all the time in the Republican Party and probably getting a load of stuff from his own party as well. So please take a look at a couple of these clips, and again, it shows he's way out of his depth.
Like, aren't you actually decreasing your own voter base by telling your own constituents not to go to the ballot box and vote for Biden because some of them just won't show up?
I'm not telling people not to go to vote. They can vote for.
Well, but some percentage of them probably aren't going to vote at all. Like, yeah, I'm not going to vote or whatever, and then they don't vote down ballot, and you're literally only hurting yourself by saying that.
Website, you have a lot of policy positions on there. You do. So I mean, I understand where you're coming from.
That's why it was weird when you guys are like, "What policies do you believe in?" Like, I literally have.
Well, it's weird because my guess
so.
is if I were to bet money, I would say you didn't write any of these, right? That's the weird thing, is that like when we ask you for a policy position, like your job right now is running for Congress, and you're like, oh, I don't know, but I guess. I don't know.
You asked like what policies do you believe in, and I listed a couple, but it's like, I mean, do you want me to list?
Well,
like,
no. So you're running for Congress in a
know.
particular district. Off the top of your head, you should be able to tell me at least 3 important policies that would impact your constituents that you talk about. No, you didn't. You gave me some vague, like, Green New Deal. Is that really the most important thing to, what is it, Wyoming voters in your district that you're going to be running for? Like, are these the 3 major policy points? Like, you should at least know that to appeal to, like, if you do local gatherings or local speeches or whatever. I imagine you've got, like, rehearsed stuff or policy points that are really important to the people that are voting for you. But you're giving, like, these really vague Medicare for all, Green New Deal. I don't know. Like, you've never even, like, thought about it before. Like, when that guy asked you for your position on firearms, you literally just read off like the first thing on your site: community armory, create community armories. Like, that's not a position on firearms. That's just the first policy point that somebody wrote for your site.
Joshua, so I'm a progressive, believe it or not, and I want to see progressive policy advanced, and I see us as having failed twice now. And, you know, you obviously have a vision and you have a different path forward. So how do you sell this vision, right? Like socialism, when you're knocking on doors or you're talking to your future constituents, like, what is the pitch to them to sell what you're envisioning?
Well, I guess it depends on their interests, but I mean, generally, I am fighting for the working class, and unapologetically so. I don't hedge my bets, which means I don't like pander to like the landlord class. And in fact, I would consider, like, I would describe myself as more antagonistic to the capitalist class. And
so when you're like, you know, if you're sitting down with like the Rotary Club or something like that, and you got a bunch of, you know, seniors in front of you, like, are they not in their head? Like, I'm curious, like, how does the progressive movement win? You know what I mean? I see you as a leader, somebody who's running for office and wants to be in Congress. So, like,
yeah,
what do you think?
I wouldn't call myself a leader. I would say I'm more of a catalyst. If that makes sense.
A catalyst? What do you mean by that?
Tries to get a ton of people to stop voting.
Oh, Jesus.
I actually haven't posted about the presidential primaries on social media. This is actually the first time I really talked about it in, like, I don't know, a few weeks now. So. I mean,
wait, I literally just checked immediately. I already see you tweeting things like Joe Biden's been real quiet since I posted like memes about you don't think Joe Biden will
that
lose
was a joke
to Trump?
About push-ups.
Okay, what about on March 4th you said Joe Biden will lose to Trump?
March 4th, you said?
Yeah.
Oh, that was over a month ago.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I just heard you say you haven't tweeted anything regarding the election.
Oh, I said in a while. I don't know. Like.
Oh, okay. My bad. I didn't hear that part.
I'm generally being like I guess shifting my focus, if that makes sense.
So yeah, it's awkward to watch, and what I would think if I was him, and I'm someone who values social media so much, I would think, this might be a bit harder than, you know, an interview on TYT or the damage report, but I'm going to go there. It's my chance to promote myself. I'm going to be ready with a couple policies I can talk about in detail. I should be, because I'm running for Congress, so policy X, Y, and Z, and this is how we are going to achieve it. But again, no, he didn't have that, and he tanked, and he face planted. Again, totally embarrassing. This guy has taken so much of people's money. On top of the fact he hasn't campaigned and he's paid his mates and his wife a ton of that money. So after spending nearly $250,000 and getting 0.9 of the vote, losing to someone who is dead, Joshua came out and explained why he lost. So here are the tweets on his election defeat. So I'll eventually do a video explaining how I managed to create a perfect storm of mistakes to lead to this colossal failure. Then I'm going to be simply continuing my career as a truck driver. I'm also going to be donating my social media accounts to mutual aid organisers, so that's fair enough. I'm not cut out to be a public figure at all, let alone a politician. Probably should have realised that before you took a bunch of people's money. I was overwhelmed by things others handle perfectly fine. I've had severe depression and anxiety since early on, and that got exponentially worse with the pandemic and Bernie's loss. I tried to cope with that, but I didn't succeed at that. I paid my staff well, perhaps too well, and treated them how I'd like to be treated. Yeah, but you were paying them other people's money. I chose not to lay everyone off at the start of the pandemic and dump the money into Facebook and ad mailers. My decision to take a break from social media because I was overwhelmed. At the same time, I chose to change parties and I sank our chances. I'm sorry to everyone who believed in me. I'll make this up to you, just not with electoral politics, or at least not from any leadership role. We fought based on public sentiment and the level of disapproval the parties had at the time, but it was a good move to switch. Clearly it wasn't. Wish I knew now what I knew then. People will trash the Dem Party, but they'll still vote for them at the end of the day. Now, he's being quite honest and upfront there, and I sympathise with him to a degree, but all these problems he had just probably didn't make him fit to be the face of a campaign. And saying he paid his campaign staff well, and he did that while not paying for Facebook ads and things like that, that doesn't really matter. You still didn't get out your staff to go knock on people's doors, which is the backbone of any good campaign. Like I said, AOC's shoes, she showed she connected with the community and worked harder than her opponent. It's not an excuse. And your campaign manager, campaign team are a complete disaster if they didn't realise this. Because nearly anyone can donate to your campaign. It's not locals, and like they said, they didn't know who you were, they didn't hear about you. And when you switched parties, that was the nail in the coffin, and you should know that. Name recognition, party. Did you think you were the guy to break the two-party duopoly of the United States when no one knows who you are? So I guess the most frustrating thing is he took well-meaning people for a ride by raising all this money and squandering it in such a disastrous way, which is also super shady. Paying salaries for people who clearly do not know what they're doing in a political landscape because you fared so poorly. 0.9 of the vote, again, you lost to a dead person. And I sympathise, you know, you're a truck driver, you know what it's like to work this really, really tough job and you wanted to make a difference. But surely you must recognise you're not cut out to be a politician from day one, because all these problems you have had, and these problems you had even facing basic pushback from someone like Destiny. Josh was just simply a meme who made things that appealed to a certain group of people who are disenfranchised, who are anti-imperialist, anti-capitalist, which is all good things, but he essentially manipulated them to give him money, which he then spread to his friends and his wife, and did basically nothing with it and had a disastrous campaign. But it's not only the social media angle. I think you can work with TikTok, you can work with Facebook and Twitter, you can have a good social media strategy, but it has to be a supplement to the core, tried and tested traditional way of doing politics, which is getting out, meeting people, and also having a very extensive platform that really help people in your district, not just a bunch of memes online that literally appeal to people who don't even vote. Yeah, Josh, some of the TikToks are funny, so just make a career being a TikToker or a social media influencer. Don't think that translates to you having an amazing campaign, getting loads of votes, and then actually being some awesome legislator in Congress. But it shows that you shouldn't trust someone like this just because they seem like they share your politics and have some edgy memes, because again, you're wasting your money. This guy was hopeless from the start. He never had any political campaign strategy. He never had any proper policies that went in depth and how he would get them passed. He disappeared from social media and he came back registering with a different party. So I'm not that sympathetic, and in my mind it's pretty close to a scam, even though I don't think that's the purpose of his campaign. It's how it pretty much turned out. So anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comments. Please like the video, maybe subscribe to the channel. Follow me on social media at the Kavernacle, mainly on Twitter, also Instagram. If you want to support my work, please check out my Patreon in the description. Also my Medium and WordPress for some written content. If you made it this far, thank you for watching.